We're halfway through Star Wars The Clone Wars' final season with the release of the most recent episode, which further details Ahsoka Tano's adventures after leaving the Jedi Order. As this video will be relating to elements of that episode, we highly recommend you watch it first. There will be spoilers ahead. For as long as the exchange of goods has been a thing in the Star Wars universe, smuggling has as well, and by the time of the Clone Wars, smuggling had been well established as a constant of life in the galaxy. In the most recent Clone Wars episode, we got an inside look at it, watching as Ahsoka and her new comrades got involved in the Kessel spice trade. In this video, we'll be taking our own look at smuggling, especially the spice trade and how Kessel was involved in it. Smuggling, for those who didn't know, was the illegal transportation of goods or people, in this case by starship and between planets. Technically speaking, it covered everything from transporting some exotic cargo without the proper permits to gun running. It came with high fines and often even prison time in the Republic, and the Confederacy of Independent Systems likely cracked down on smuggling as well, though the Hutts not only allowed it, but encouraged it, provided they were getting a cut of the profits. Normally, the Republic cracked down on smuggling quite harshly, with both planetary security forces and the judicial forces working with the Bureau of Ships and Services to catch and apprehend smugglers. But the Separatist crisis and the subsequent Clone Wars changed matters. Suddenly, the Republic had its hands full with the Separatists, and with the galactic government distracted, smuggling thrived. During the Clone Wars, smugglers were often even hired by legitimate governments to deliver food, medicine, and other essential supplies across battle lines, especially by neutral systems. This increase in smuggling continued during the time of the Empire, which severely tightened trade restrictions and inflated the demand for smuggling drastically. The most famously smuggled commodity in the galaxy, no matter what era we're talking about, was spice. And no, we're not talking about garlic or something here. The kinds of spice we're referring to were narcotics, often highly potent ones. Over the course of galactic history, whole spice trading empires, both legitimate and criminal, rose and fell. Some turned the spice into medicine and some sold it to addicts on the streets of Nar Shaddaa and similar starports. Whole wars were waged over spice, including a centuries-long debate in the Galactic Senate about how to regulate and, more importantly, tax it. The narcotic effects of some spices were discovered by the inhabitants of Koros Major, a deep core world that helped found the Republic. As their planet had massive deposits of carbonite, the Korosians were essential to pre-Republic sleeper ship missions, in which explorers were frozen in carbonite while their ships set off to found new colonies. Upon reaching their destinations and being unfrozen, these explorers often experienced severe hibernation sickness. The Korosians discovered that Andrus spice minimized the symptoms of hibernation sickness if taken shortly before and shortly after being put into carbon freeze, beginning the long history of spice being used and abused as a narcotic. By the time of the Clone Wars, the spice trade was heavily regulated and heavily taxed by the Republic, and a massive black market for the stuff was formed in response. This black market was largely controlled by the Hutts, who allowed smugglers to use Hutt space as a haven for their operations, provided they gave the Hutts a cut of their earnings. At the time of the Clone Wars, the Pike Syndicate also had control of a wide swath of the spice trade, especially operations on Kessel and other backwater worlds along the Outer Trielius trade route. There were innumerable varieties of spice in circulation by the time of the Clone Wars. The aforementioned Andrus spice was the most well-known, a minor stimulant that could be found naturally on hundreds of thousands of planets across the galaxy. A stronger relative of Andrus, carcinum, was also popular, and the planet Severkos was the primary source of both in the galaxy. Ryloth, the home planet of the Twi'leks, was known for its high-quality rill, a powerful spice with both medicinal and hallucinogenic uses. But perhaps the most well-known kind of spice was glitterstim, an incredibly potent drug found only on Kessel. Glitterstim was naturally produced by energy spiders, which lived deep in Kessel's crust. They used the drug to make their webs, which were razor sharp and nearly as dangerous as the spiders themselves. Extracting glitterstim from existing webs was pretty much suicide, so instead, the planet's crust was shredded by mining operations, which extracted old or fossilized webs deep underground. To make matters worse, glitterstim was activated and rendered useless by light, requiring miners on Kessel to dig in faint red lighting or, more commonly, without any light at all. This, together with the sharpness of glitterstim, the viciousness of the energy spiders, and plenty of other unpleasantries Kessel had to offer, made the spice mines of Kessel one of the most dangerous workplaces in the galaxy. But glitterstim commanded high prices on the black market, so the mines were worked by a mix of hut slaves and convicts, constantly seeking new veins of the drug. Glitterstim had medicinal properties, but it was most commonly used as a hallucinogen, one which was believed by many to grant a limited range of telepathic abilities. For these reasons, and for its addictive properties, glitterstim was highly regulated by the Republic, and legal operations on Kessel were taxed to hell and back. Even those who could acquire glitterstim legitimately often hired smugglers just to avoid all the red tape. That said, smuggling glitterstim from Kessel was exceptionally risky, usually done only by accomplished smugglers. Kessel was surrounded by the Maw Nebulae, a mess of interstellar gases and newborn stars that made travel to and from the planet pure hell. There was a route through the nebulae, the Kessel Trade Corridor, which connected the Kessel system with the nearby Zerm system, but this corridor was, depending on the era, either heavily regulated or heavily raided. During the Republic's stronger periods and during the time of the Empire, the whole route was basically blockaded, with a system of checkpoints in place to catch as many smugglers as possible. When such military blockades weren't really feasible, like in the Clone Wars, the route was instead made dangerous by pirates, as Ahsoka mentioned in the most recent Clone Wars episode. But there was another way to Kessel, an extremely dangerous route called the Kessel Run. This led to Kessel directly from the Formos on the Trielius trade route, passing through a complicated and hard to navigate clump of nebulae on the way. But the nebulae were the least of the space's worry on the Kessel Run. At one point, as ships closed in on the Kessel system, they would have to pass through a perilous asteroid field known as the Pit, right after which they would have to travel around the Maw, a cluster of black holes that caused hyperspace warping gravitational anomalies. Daredevil smugglers cut close to the Maw to complete the Kessel Run faster, often with disastrous consequences. The Millennium Falcon holds the all-time record, having come within 12 parsecs of the Maw during one particular run.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Should I have?
It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
That particularly dangerous side of galactic smuggling is what Ahsoka and the crew of the Silver Angel lame have gotten themselves wrapped up in the most recent Clone Wars arc. Worse, they've not only got involved in the Kessel spice trade, but they're working with the Pikes as well, a vicious syndicate of drug dealers that, at this point in time, owned not only much of Kessel, but also spice operations across the galaxy. Of course, there was more to the black market spice trade than just Kessel. Another particularly famous route was the Lannic Spice Run, a hyperspace route that passed from Mon Gaza, an important mid-rim spaceport on the Corellian Run, out into wild space, where naturally, spice was in high demand. Pretty much every major world on the route had a role in the spice trade. Mon Gaza, Magravia, and Jermak were all big spice producers. Andalasa and Midani were notable transshipment points, and Lannic, Socorro, and Spice Terminus were all crowded with smugglers who sent spice every which way across that part of wild space. Spice Terminus was especially notorious for this, hence the name. There was also the Spice Triangle, a whole region of the Outer Rim notorious for its massive role in the spice trade. The Spice Triangle was a trio of hyperspace routes that commanded smuggling of Ryloth's real spice across the galaxy. On the one side, the stretch of the Corellian run between Ryloth and Mon Gaza allowed the spice to be delivered quickly and efficiently, albeit at great risk of being boarded. On the other side, a lesser known route, appropriately known as the Deathwind Corridor, cut from Ryloth over to Rune through a region called the Cloak of the Sith. From Rune, the spice was distributed along the Treeless trade route, the third side of the triangle, which connected a massive arc of the Outer Rim and was controlled in large part by the Hutts. So that was our look at smuggling and the spice trade, topics that recently featured prominently in the Clone Wars. But what do you think? Are there other topics like this that you'd like to see covered in the future? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comments section below. And as per usual guys, make sure you check out all the links in the description below if you want to join the wider Geetsly's community, including our Geetsly's Gaming Network where you can join us on Gary's Mod and our Roblox, our main Geetsly's Discord where you can chat with other Star Wars fans, and the Patreon if you want to help support the channel. If you do decide to donate, you get access to a special behind the scenes Discord where you can see how myself and the team work. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.